Hand size and finger strength plays an important role in many physical endeavors. Whether it's gripping a basketball, throwing a baseball, or catching a football, they all rely to some extent on the size and strength of one's hands. It's an important enough attribute that they even rank athletes by hand length and width, because it may have marginal effects on their performance. And playing an instrument, albeit less strenuous, is a physical activity in its own right. But instead of gripping a basketball, throwing a baseball, and catching a football, it's the span of keys you can press down at once on the piano, or playing double stops on the upright bass, or large chord structures on the guitar. Big, strong hands has its advantages when it comes to playing instruments, and that was the market tactic used in the 19th and early 20th centuries to entice musicians to shill out for crazy contraptions intended to enlarge and strengthen your hands to take your playing to the next level. Today, we'll take a look at 3 of those contraptions: the Dactylion, Cairo Gymnast, and Achedactyl. The Dactylion is the earliest of the 3, created in 1836 by Austrian pianist and composer Henry Herz. It was designed to fit over the keyboard, and the pianist would stick their individual fingers through each of the 10 rings. Springs attached to each of the rings allowed increased resistance to be applied to each finger while they played. It's kind of like when baseball players warm up with a weighted donut to add weight to the bat, so that their swing feels faster when they take the weight off. The same principle applies with the Dactylion. Play with resistance so that your fingers would feel faster once you remove the resistance. It was somewhat of a commercial success, with claims that they were flying off the shelves at the time. But it's thought that Schumann paralyzed his own fingers with a modified version of the Dactylion, so its standardization was never realized. Next up is the Cairo Gymnast, which was invented just 4 years after the Dactylion in 1840 by French piano maker Casimir Martin. The device's intent was to relax the joints and allow greater range of motion for individual fingers both perpendicularly and horizontally. It achieved this by slowly increasing the width between individual fingers through a frame that held the fingers in a permanent stretch. This device luckily wasn't nearly as successful as the previous one, with Chopin himself detesting the device, saying he recommended his pupils make use of their own intelligence in practicing. Finally, the Achedactyl rounds out our trio of devices. The most modern of the 3, the Achedactyl was created in 1922 and looks more like a saw trap than a device for musicians. Invented by Frenchman Georges Rétif, the user would stick their fingers into the clamps while the other hand cranked the device to make the fingers travel up and down. Ads claimed that using the Achedactyl for 7 minutes a day was the equivalent finger exercise of 1.5 hours of traditional practice. The Achedactyl saw little traction within the music world, with most of them being sold in France, where they were originally built. For centuries, there have been musicians searching for shortcuts to improve their technique and skill. Some resort to devices like these 3 in an attempt to take their playing to the next level. In reality, those unfortunate enough to use these devices were often left with permanent damage that left them worse off than before. Hand size and strength isn't the be-all end-all. Plenty of musicians get by with small hands, weak fingers, even missing fingers. It just takes some creative ingenuity to come up with a viable approach to the music that works for you.